Hi guys, it's Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-fi, also known as Marc Zicree of Space Command, and today we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, and so I have a guest star, my dog Squirrel. We'll see how this goes. And because the best character in Guardians of the Galaxy is Rocket Squirrel, played by Bradley Cooper, and also, by the way, they've made CG fur look a lot more real. And dogs are endearing characters, of course. That's why we have them. And so basically, here's the lowdown on Guardians of the Galaxy, which I've seen now. It's fun, it's entertaining, it's not great. It's not the great science fiction movie I was hoping it would be. But that said, it's very fun. The fight sequences are great. The action sequences, the spaceships, all that stuff, all the stuff we go to summer movies for. It's there. And the actors are endearing and charming, and they're working hard. Including Dave Bautista, the wrestler. We actually know his acting coach, who's a very dear friend, and so these are actors who are committed. They're trying to do a terrific job. We all know that the lead actor, lost a lot of weight and got into shape for the role, stopped drinking, and hopefully he'll stay in shape. That would be lovely, and for health, if for no other reasons. For me, my favorite two scenes were the first two scenes. The scene where we meet the main character as a boy, where it goes is unexpected and touching, and then the second scene where we meet the main character as an adult. And there's something I'm not going to spoil any of it, but it's a scene where it's very playful and he's very endearing and it's just kind of joyful. It seems very natural, and I liked that. But for me, the film I think they're trying to cover too much of the Marvel universe. There's so much backstory and so many different races and so many different worlds, and the aliens are just, humans in funny kind of eyes and funny kind of hair. Though, of course, the funniest hair of all is what they put Glenn Close in, so good Lord. Though I remember Glenn Close, of course, as the First Lady in Mars Attacks, which is one of my secret guilty pleasures. It's a film I actually like very, very much. But here's what I want to talk about in terms of Guardians of the Galaxy. Although it's not a film that I loved, it's a film that I found entertaining. Somewhere out there are kids where this will be the film for them, the big change of life, major film that they just love for the rest of their lives. And in that regard, I'll tell you a story. Many of you know that Ray Bradbury was a good friend of mine and a mentor for the last 10 years of his life, and he's sadly missed. But at one point, I was sitting in Ray's house, and he called me over. He motioned me over. He said, "Lean in close. I want to tell you a secret." And I leaned in close, and he leaned in close, and he said, "I'm 13 years old." This is when he was in his 80s, and so and it was true. It was true. There was a part of him, the dear part of him, the science fiction fan part of him that was 13. And my friend Mel Gilden has said that the golden age of science fiction is 13, because that's when we encounter those wonderful things that last us a lifetime. Now, actually, for me, Star Trek debuted when I was 10, and I read the making of Star Trek when I was 13, and that was what first gave me the idea of becoming a writer-producer in television. And when Star Wars came out, I was in my early 20s. I think I was 22. And so I was actually too old for Star Wars. Again, it was a film I liked. But for those friends of mine who were kids, like J.J. Abrams, J.J. and I have talked about Star Wars and Star Trek. And yeah, it's common knowledge that J.J. is not a Star Trek fan. So he brought his artistry and his craft to the Star Trek movie. But that's not where his heart lives, whereas Star Wars is. And so I personally think he's going to do a very good job with the Star Wars films, because it means an enormous amount to him. And but with Guardians of the Galaxy, I think there's going to be a whole generation of kids who this may be the film for them. We'll see. We'll find out. But and that's absolutely fine, because every film, when people say this film is a good film or this film is a bad film, I kind of withhold judgment on that, because for me, every film is a conversation between the individual audience member and the film itself. And it's the journey that person in the audience has taken every moment of their life, the totality of their experience, meeting the moment of that film. And if those match, then it creates something more than either. And so for me, Aliens is a film I love. Blade Runner is a film I love. 2001, of course. And Star Trek has a very special place in my heart, just because of when I first encountered it and how different it was from everything I'd seen. And the other part, of course, is a film being different from what we've seen before. It fills a certain entertainment niche, an entertainment niche where it's similar to the films we've seen, but it has to have something fresh, something different, something that takes it a step aside, a step above. So that's sort of my little capsule commentary on Star Trek and Star Wars. The one big difference I should mention is that when I was a kid, if you were into science fiction, you were a weirdo. You were the oddball. It wasn't cool. Now, of course, it's mainstream culture. So Star Wars fans are the cool kids. You know, fans who are of the genre are the cool. It's nerds on high. You know, geeks on high, and that's fine. You know, I mean, and for Ray Bradbury, for him, the two science fiction things that shaped him were Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs, which he read when he was a kid, to the degree that the first thing he ever sat down and wrote on a toy typewriter when he was 12 was a sequel to Princess of Mars. He couldn't wait for the next Mars book to come out, so he sat down and wrote one. And he would actually step outside his house as a kid and put his arms up to the heavens at night and say, "Mars, take me home." And the other thing that was a huge influence on him was the Buck Rogers comic strips, and he collected them. And when he was a kid, I think he was around 7 years old, the other kids were making fun of him, and he went home and he tore up his Buck Rogers collection and threw it out, and then burst into tears, realizing that he had done something terrible and he had betrayed himself and betrayed his heart, and he vowed never to do that again. And years later, when he was an adult, he was speaking up in Big Bear, and someone came up to him afterwards and said, because Ray told that story, and they came up to him and said, "Well, I've collected the Buck Rogers strips since I was a kid, and I can give you the strips that you tore up." And he did, and that was enormously meaningful to Ray. Ray never threw out anything meaningful to him. And one time we were sitting in his house, because I would go over once a month and we'd sit and we'd talk, and Ray was telling me about the toy typewriter he was given when he was 12 that he started writing on, and I said to him, "Oh God, it'd be so great to see that typewriter." And he said, "Well, it's right over there." And he gestured, and I looked over, and it was about 2 feet from me. And of course, I took a photo of it, and it was just such an astonishing thing, such a wonderful thing. So those are the lessons that I've learned from my mentors. And when you love something, keep it close, keep it in your heart. And so Guardians of the Galaxy, go see it. You'll enjoy it, and bring your kids, because some of your kids, that's going to be the turning point for them, and it'll make them weirder, and it'll make them more interesting, and it'll enrich their lives. So that's it for now, Mr. Sci-Fi and Squirrel the dog. There you go, and we'll see you again really soon. Take care. Bye-bye.